In this video, I want to share with you two main aspects of inner talking, which is something that we all do if we are aware of it or not. And I also would like to share with you a special tip that not many are aware of, that you can utilize inner talking to manifest your goal. Okay, so this is very powerful. So let's just dive right in. And first of all, inner talking, right? What inner talking is, it's an indicator on where you dwell within and to which internal state you return, because your inner talking reveals, from which state you come. If you always have inner conversations, money is scarce and money is evil and I don't have enough money and money is hard to get and probably will take me, I have to work hard for a lot of money. Well, that reveals in which state you dwell, which attitude you have towards that subject in life. And so you can watch your inner talking for any area of your life, and it reveals the general state you're in when it comes to that area of your life. But the second thing that inner talking is, it's also creative, right? Meaning it's also a creative cause for the circumstances of your life. Because at the same time, your inner talking identifies you or keeps you again in certain states or puts you into new states if you make new inner talking in life. And therefore you can also manifest from the right inner talking. And that is what we're going to look at during this video. So again, it's an indicator, like I said, right? So it's automatic throughout the day. We all do it. We all have automatic inner conversations. We automatically all say things such as, I'm the person who is always like this, or I'm the person who always gets this, or I'm the person who's always treated like this, right? We're not saying this out loud. We say this to ourselves within, right? It's running to us. It's this inner self-talk, these inner conversations. And so they indicate that these are the states we're in. These are the identities we are identified with, right? It just happens. It usually happens for most people uncontrolled. But again, if you become aware of it, it can show you in which states you dwell, right? You can basically not stop talking to yourself internally. And oftentimes you're unaware of it, and therefore you perpetuate it, and therefore you stay in certain states. And where you dwell within, that is where you will also dwell on the outside too, usually in a delayed way. But that's the first aspect of inner talking, right? I broke it down into the two main aspects. One, an indicator on where you dwell. Second, creative at the same time. It's not only indicating where you dwell, but it's also, bringing forth new circumstances. Because what are inner conversations? Well, they're also imaginal activity. They're also inner movement, right? If I always have, or if I make alive the inner conversations such as, I'm like this, I'm the person who's always like this, I'm the person who never gets this, I'm the person who is treated like this, who is seen by the world like this and whatnot, then this can also put me into new states. It's also inner movement into new states. And these inner conversations are subjectively real. What we say to us within is real for ourselves. The world doesn't see it, right? If I call myself X, Y, and Z, well, you don't see it, what I say to myself within. Yet it is subjectively true for myself, right? And what's subjectively real for me will eventually also be seen and accepted by the outside. But it's first an inner shift, right? So don't underestimate the power of inner conversations. And again, after this slide, I will give you a special tip that you can utilize inner conversations to manifest your goal, right? And as it's been said in the Bible, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And what that means is not what you think in your mind or what you feel as emotions in your heart. No, where your consciousness is dwelling on, right? Where you shift your awareness to, where you give your attention to, where you dwell within, right? What you actually have accepted as true for yourself, that is also what the world will show you. And your inner conversations can shift you into any desired new internal state, right? So by basically having inner conversations coming from the state of the wish fulfilled, that can also anchor you more and more and more in the wish fulfilled state. And that is now also a special tip that I have for you, okay? So what you can do, how you can utilize inner conversations. Now that you start to become more aware of them, or after this video, you will, become more aware during the day on where you dwell within, which is very helpful to see, certain patterns, to see if you dwell in certain undesirable states. And once you become aware of that, a way to change that, a way to utilize inner conversations to manifest is this. You can imagine a scene, right? A simple scene where you say something specific to yourself that implies that your desires manifest it. I want to give you a concrete example. So, usually when we are finally having something, right, we say to ourselves within something like, finally, or I always knew I will get this, or isn't that amazing, or I'm so glad it's finally there. Stuff like that. We don't say this out loud, but we say this to ourselves within when things are finally as we want them to be. And I've also personally done this multiple times where I've put myself into the state of the wish fulfilled by asking myself, what would I say to myself if it's done? I would say something like, finally, hear me, like perceive myself breathing out and say within, finally. And I can imagine that, right? I can imagine that. I'm not actually acting as if and do this right now. No, I imagine myself into the future, which is happening right now, into the point in time where my desire is already fulfilled, because in that moment I would say something to myself like, I always get what I want, or isn't that amazing? I knew I will get this. And have this as an inner conversation to imply my desired state, right? To anchor myself into the state of the wish fulfilled. So that is a very powerful tip. You could try this. It's super easy. Imagine a scene. Ask yourself, what would you say to yourself if your desire is fulfilled? And then imagine that internally. So talking to oneself, like I said in the beginning, is a habit everyone indulges in. We could no more stop talking to ourselves than we could stop eating and drinking. All we can do is control the nature and the direction of our inner conversations. Most of us are totally unaware of the fact that our inner conversations are the causes of the circumstances of our life. Right? So here you have it clearly from Neville Goddard again, that inner conversations not only indicate where you dwell, but they're at the same time also creative. They're also anchoring you in states. And the more aware you can become of them, the more in conscious control of, the events that play out in your life you will be. So if you find yourself carrying on negative conversations, but you first have to increase your self-awareness, right? If you need help with that, be aware that we have the program in the video description and pinned comments. If you want to work with me, there are certain stages that we go through, and one of the first foundational things is self-awareness, so that you even see in which states do you dwell, in which states do you always come back to, because only then will you also gain the clarity of what you actually want. And then you can also define, okay, I want this, and then you can consciously make new states alive. So if you need help with this whole process, you want to incorporate, you want to apply all of these principles, then you can apply for my program. But again, we do this all the time. And when you see you're carrying on negative inner conversations, when you see within yourself you dwell in negative states, then you can break it, right? Even though it gives you pleasure, as it does for many people. They find such fun being critical. And you probably know some people, right, who just like to vent and to dwell on the negative stuff and to judge others, to judge themselves, who have no compassion, right, who just dwell and they find pleasure in that. It excites them, it excites the ego, right, to compare and to talk bad about others, to talk bad about their own life even sometimes, and to perpetuate, oh yeah, this happened to me and this happened to me, but it's not really helpful. So our inner talking, though unheard by others, is more productive of future conditions than all audible promises and threats of man. Let this sink in, right? The inner talking, the inner, what we say to ourselves, how we imagine conversations with others as well, how we imagine that we talk to others, it is not heard from the outside. No one sees, no one hears why you dwell with him, right? But it is more productive of future conditions than any audible promises, than what you do on the outside. It's more relevant than what you do on the inside. Your ideal is waiting to be incarnated. Your desired reality, your desired state exists. It's there. You ought already. But it can't be awakened when you're not dwelling in it, when you not start to think from it. Right? But unless you yourself offered human parentage, it is incapable of birth. You must define the person you wish to be and then assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled in faith that assumption will find expression through you. This is what I ask everyone to observe. Observe what you're actually doing inside. For that is what God sees. Right? So you could pretend externally to be the nicest person, but within you dwell on undesirable states. Within you dwell on lack, on illness, on this and this and that. Well, then that is what your life out pictures. Your life out pictures what you're actually conscious of, not what you act as if. And what you're doing on the inside, you're doing in little tiny speech movement. And they're crystallizing in the manifested world round about you. Right? What you do within yourself is crystallized, is mirrored back on the outside. As long as there is no change in his inner talking, the personal history of the man remains the same. To attempt to change the world before we change our inner talking is to struggle against the very nature of things. Man can go round and round in the same circle of disappointments and misfortunes, not seeing them as caused by his own negative inner talking, but as caused by others, right? Inner talking from premises of the fulfilled desire is the way to consciously create circumstances. Remember the tip I gave you. This is exactly it. Inner talking from premises of fulfilled desire is the way to consciously create circumstances. What would your inner talking be like? What would you say to yourself if your desire is fulfilled? That is what you can imagine right now. You can imagine that you drop off to bed, you have your desire, and you say, you just say to yourself within, I knew I would get this, or isn't that awesome, right? And that's from the premise of the fulfilled desire. Our inner conversations are perpetually outpictured all around us in happenings. Therefore, what we desire to see and hear without, we must see and hear within first. As within, so without. We first have to give it ourselves within. Inner movement first, external movement as a mirror, as a confirmation where we already dwell within. What is your aim? It's all coming back to this core question always. What do you desire right now? We always are, in search for the next video to give us the next best tip on what to do. But the best thing to do is ask yourself, what do you want right now? What would imply you are right now? And to right now give yourself that state. To right now give yourself that experience of the wish fulfilled. That's the best investing of your time that you can do. Right? So what is your desire? Does your inner talking match it? Or do you say things, it would be nice and I hope I get this in the future? That is thinking of it. That is you keeping the desire separate. But it must, if you would realize your aim, right? If you want to realize your aim, your inner talking has to match it. You have to go to the end state, make it natural, and your inner talking will come from the premise of already having achieved the goal. All right? So that is inner talking. If we come back to the beginning, indicator on where you dwell within, so become aware of it. It will give you a better clue on what you have alive inside of yourself. And then if you see, I don't like that, then you can change it. You can make new inner talking alive. Or you can imagine something that you can imagine a new inner talking, how you say something to yourself that implies that you're in a new state. You can change your inner talking because that will also change the events of your life. And that is inner talking. It's straightforward. It's not something complicated. We all do it, and it's definitely helpful to become aware of it. So if that excites you, definitely leave me in the comments down below how you like that, what feedback you have, if you are more aware of your inner talking, if you are basically practicing a conscious inner talking from premises of your fulfilled desire. Also, if you've utilized the special tip I gave you, where you can imagine something that you would say to yourself if your desire is realized. I did that many times. It really works. It's similar as to imagining telling a friend about your achieved desire and they congratulate you. It's very similar, only that you imagine saying something to yourself. Right, so let me know if you did that, if you have any feedback, if you want to work with me, or if you want more resources. Again, there's a new free masterclass, an updated version of my free masterclass. You can check this out. And if at some point you feel a dissatisfaction with your circumstances of your life and you want to know how to actually move within, how you actually, manifest new circumstances for your life, and no matter which area it is, then you can apply for my program and work with me personally, with a community, with a system, with one-on-one support. That is what I can offer. And I see you in the next one. Bye, guys.